Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. I cannot wait to introduce you to our guest this week. But before I do, I want to thank some folks that we always thank. We always thank brassandwinds.com for their kindness to us. Brassandwinds.com is the place we go when we're looking for brass and wind instruments, new and used. We can't recommend them highly enough, and we thank them for all their kindness. We are Willow Music, formerly Grant Park Academy of the Arts. We are the next generation of music instruction, and we have instruction in all sorts of instruments, including the piano, the guitar, drums, trombone, saxophone, voice, just about anything you can think of. We're currently not seeing people live because of the pandemic, although we will soon. We can see anyone in the world via Zoom, and we look forward to helping you with that. If you are too shy to study with a person, then you can work with us at our website, TruerMU, which I can't seem to get to all of a sudden. TruerMU, TruerMU.com, where you're free to take a video class on basic jazz improvisation taught by me. And if you're interested in that, you can visit us right here at TruerMU. There we are. All right, that's enough self-promotion. I want to give you a little background before I introduce our guest. Thank you. So, folks that know me know that I am a huge Billy Joel fanatic. And as part of my Billy Joel addiction, I joined a very, very great community on Facebook called Billy Joel Completely Retold. And one of the lucky things about being part of this community is I got to know a really terrific guy named Rhys Clark. Rhys Clark is a drummer who worked with Billy Joel on two of his albums, Cold Spring Harbor and Piano Man. And he was willing to come talk to us today. Now, before I introduce him to you officially, I'm going to give you a little background. Billy Joel is just one piece of what he's done. He's been a session drummer for a group called The Silhouettes, and they produced a big hit called Theme from Endless Summer. He's worked with Captain Beefheart, Hoyt Axton, Freddie Fender, Charlie Rich, all sorts of people. He's basically a high-profile session drummer that's just done great work for us all through the years. Rhys Clark, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me in there, Adam. Nice to be here with you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I want to separate this interview into basically three parts: before Billy Joel, and after Billy Joel, so we can talk about your whole career. And I also want to talk some about just being a drummer and being a session player. So let's start with your background before you got to Billy Joel. Before we start geeking out about Billy, we'll talk about what you did first.
Well, I first got into drums at about 5 years old because there was a snare drum in the music period that just drew me right in, and I never got over it, Adam. So fast forward to about 1966, after playing with the Silhouettes and recording, as you said, Endless Summer and stuff, I decided to pursue drums in a professional way. So that meant that I could go to Australia because obviously with more population, there's more work, etc. So I did that, and I got lucky. I joined a band called the Executives there, and they were looking to get a record deal. And we, in 3.5 years, we had a bunch of hit records, and got the opportunity to come to Los Angeles to the big sky pie. And so we came to Los Angeles in 1969, 70, and we settled in. We got a record deal right away. Record deals were pretty easy to get, actually. I mean, from our point of view, they were. I know that competition's always tough, but at that time, it wasn't too difficult once you established yourself a little to be able to get a deal. So we started doing an album, and we had to change our name from the Executives to Innocence, and it took a long time to get completed, and so I started doing other little projects, demos and stuff with people, and this was all under the umbrella of Family Records. So the producer got me to listen to some songs by this New York singer-songwriter, and I listened to a demo of 7 songs, and the next week he brought this fellow out to Los Angeles, who signed a deal with his label, and I got selected to be the drummer. And a partner in recording, Don Evans, he also got elected to play guitar and stuff. So we met Billy Joel at Record Plant West, and shook hands and introduced each other, and went, hey, let's do an album. And Billy immediately got on the piano and launched into Joe Cocker's version of the letter. And that's how we started playing together. We did the album. Billy went back to New York so that the album could be completed in LA. And that at that point, Billy was looking to put a band together to go on the road. And so he gave me a call and said, would you like to go on the road? And I said, yeah. I said, I've been in Los Angeles for, 15, 18 months and haven't played live. And that's what we were trying to do. After you do the album, you go on the road and promote it. So I said, I'd love to. So I flew out to New York and got together with Billy, and he very kindly let me stay at his apartment. And we put the band together for Cold Spring Harbor and started to tour from there. So that leads me to Billy, and I got to be with Billy for 4.5 years and playing the Piano Man album on Captain Jack, and went to a marvelous amount of places, places that I just was like pinch me moments. Here I am playing Carnegie Hall, and Lincoln Center, Avery Fisher Hall, and I'm going, this is just beyond fantastic. So go ahead.
We'll come back to Billy Joel in a
Yeah,
minute. I don't
sure.
want to pass over your earlier years too fast because there's a lot of interesting stuff in
Oh,
there.
okay. All right.
So I think probably some of our older listeners will know about the Silhouettes and the theme from Endless Summer. Are you suggesting that the Silhouettes was really not a big band, that they were just, that you didn't want to go pro? You've got this national hit in the theme from Endless Summer, and yet then you decided to go pro? That's very interesting to me.
Yes. The reason being that we did, being that it's a limited business in New Zealand, it's very difficult to, make it a full-time job, in other words, go professional. So we've all got day jobs. And I was a graphic artist at
Okay.
the time. Yeah. So I had the desire after we did like 3 singles to, want us to go full time. And what you could do then was you could also go to Australia and promote yourself and get into the Australian music business, you see. Well, the other 3 guys, they didn't want to leave their day jobs. And I understand that. So um, that's why I opted out and decided to, take a gamble um, and fly the nest, so to speak,
Yeah. Well, even
and go to
today,
Sydney.
yeah, even today, the Australian and New Zealand scene is different. It's far enough away geographically that even in our combined world, it's still another world musically.
Oh
And
yes,
and this is back in the '60s, of course, where
yeah,
Australia is this mythical place. So,
yeah.
tell me a little bit about the executives. Were you rock stars there? Did you have big crowds?
Yes, we were a pop band, and we were kind of tailored to all the age groups, and successfully by a manager who was very good at what he did, and he decided that I think he made a bet. He was on the board of directors of a design company for designing televisions, radios, and the drummer in the then associates also worked at the company with him. And apparently, the manager and the drummer made a bet that he made a bet that he could promote a band and within 2 or 3 years make a success of it. And so someone took him up on the bet. So what so what happened was the band that the drummer was in was called the Associates, and the association was hot at the time, so they kind of couldn't use that. So they elected to call themselves the Executives. So what happened was, how I came on the scene with them was I was now in Sydney at that moment, looking to, get some work. And they had put an ad in the Sydney Herald looking for a drummer to go professional. And I thought, whoa, this is an opportunity for me. This is kind of the thing that I've been looking for. So called them up, and they arranged for an audition, and they were going to audition a bunch of drummers. Once again, the drummer with the associates didn't want to leave his job. He had
Yeah.
family and all that, so they were looking to go professional. So I hooked up with them and came over to the manager's house, and we auditioned. Um, they didn't have any original songs at the time. A neat thing about the Silhouettes was we had a couple of original songs, so we were venturing into the British wave thing, with some uh, original songs as well. So
Uh-huh.
I already had a taste of that, if you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And so I auditioned, and they uh, I was the first to audition because they were very interested in what I'd done with the Silhouettes, etc. And they all huddled and came back into the living room where we were set up at the manager's house and said, "We like what you're doing. If you would like to join us, the gig's yours." And so that's what started the executives and the manager and his bet.
Did he win?
Yes, he did. We went on in 3.5 years. We became, the pop band of Australia. Amongst all the leading bands and solo artists of the time. And so we got a record deal with Festival Records, and we had three top 20 songs, and we also got a lot of exposure on television shows. We were very marketable, as I said, to a large age group of people. So we were pretty squeaky clean, and but trying to be hip in amongst that,
Right,
with
right.
the Carnaby Street, fashion stuff.
Uh-huh.
And so we got to do a Coca-Cola commercial, which was national in Australia and New Zealand. Um, and at the 1969, we wanted to branch out and see if we could come to the United States.
I want to ask you
Uh,
about that. Yeah, you've got it
yeah.
set in Australia. You guys are king in Australia.
Yeah.
What's the appeal of the United States at that time?
To go to Mecca, to up the ante, um, and take a gamble on, the business,
Right.
which was the United States. And
So
so, and we had musically drawn ourselves to a lot of the United States material, the Fifth Dimension, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, etc.
yeah.
Um, and at the time, we were in the audiences. There would be GIs from Vietnam who would come up afterwards after the show and say, "Hey, you guys ought to go to the States." So little things like that were
Yeah.
kind of helping us along. And our manager arranged for us to come to Los Angeles in '69, and we did. And we were on a 2 month visa, and in that 2 months, Adam, we got a record deal, a
Yeah.
production deal with Family Records.
Were there other
Hmm.
Australian bands there as well, or were you an oddity?
No, we were a one-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. Our manager connected us with a manager over here who, at the time, his name's Frank Day, rest in peace. And Frank, kind of took over management here for us, and so he set up auditions for record labels, etc., etc. And Family Productions was the one that liked what we were doing, and we were writing original songs in rehearsal studios here. Um, and so we got a deal. And what happened was the company, Adam, our 2 months was up, and so we were obligated to go back to Australia, and he didn't want us to. So uh, So we said, well, we have to. We're contracted to go back to Sydney, and our manager there has put a farewell 6-week farewell tour together of Australia, and so we had to do that. And so we went back, and then February of '70, because this is like November, December of '69, February of '70, the record label flew us back, set us up in apartments, etc., and we continued to work on the album.
Hmm. How did
Yeah,
that fare? Did the executives make it in the United States? I'm not familiar with the band.
right. That's because uh, first of all, when we got here, we couldn't use the name because it was already registered.
That's right. He said
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, so really starting again was was definitely a place where we found ourselves starting again because we now had to rename ourselves, and so we were called. The producer named us. Well, we agreed to be named Innocence. The 2 words, Innocence,
Yeah.
and so now we're Innocence, and we're doing our album. Well, it was taking a long time to complete. There was lots of things going on. The company was signing all kinds of songwriters, and one was included, Billy Joel.
Yeah.
And so the the empire that he was putting together, he was interested in being a new Lou Adler, a new Phil Spector.
This is
You
Artie Rip
know,
you're talking about.
I yeah, I am.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and so. Um, he was, yeah. So he had a bands and singer songwriters, and he was really putting together a lot of people, a lot of talented people, very talented people. And so, but you're spreading yourself a little thin because you can only be in one studio at a time,
Right.
and plus he was also getting the label going, which meant getting a distribution deal for his label family and doing all that. So we're kind of in limbo a lot now that the album is about 95% completed. Yeah, and so it's starting to get a little long. And Artie's in Europe and he's in New York, and but I mean it's all working towards the good of everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because we're going to everybody wants to make it, so so that's what's going on, and so with a bunch of other songwriters on his roster, I got the chance through Artie to play drums on their demos,
Yeah. Anybody else
and
besides Billy Joel that we might have heard of?
well, the first guy that you probably don't know, but he had his own track record. His name was Peter Anders, and Peter and Vinnie Poncia were songwriters in New York, in the Brill Building there in
Yeah.
Manhattan, and they had scored successes with Phil Spector and the Ronettes, and
Hmm.
they had their own bands and their own productions of their own songs. So Pete Anders had signed with Artie, and so he had a track record going for him,
Right. Yeah.
and then Lynn Carey, uh, who was the lady singer with a band called Mama Lion, who Mama Lion was another Artie act. Lynn Carey is McDonald Carey's daughter, and McDonald Carey was that longtime actor and soap opera star of
Okay.
um, like sand through the hourglass. That one.
These are the days of our lives.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is his daughter, and she's got the talent too. So that was another act. And otherwise, outside of Billy, of course, um, and us execs becoming in a sense, everybody was kind of new and upstarts, looking to get a deal, and Artie would sign them as songwriters and do demos and so forth, and
Yeah.
then shop the demos for a record deal.
You're
Or
you're in LA at a very exciting time in the music industry. I mean, it's all just bubbling.
Exactly.
You had
Yes.
a perfect seat to the whole thing.
Exactly. I'm very fortunate that the time was really a nice piece of luck because yes, I mean, I after a while, doing demos with different people, and then with the musicians who you would do a song with, they had another project, and so stuff snowballs,
Yeah.
and so because the Hollywood end of the music business was really hot and bubbling and had been for a couple of years already. So we came into kind of the middle of it,
Yeah.
and 1970, and so yes, exactly. You're right, Adam. It was fantastic. The
So
the amount of creativity going on in any given studio on any given day and night.
now I know everybody is screaming at me to get to Billy, get to Billy, get to Billy, but I can't quite. I have to ask at least from your view in your little studio. Were you able to check out what was going on in other studios? Were you seeing the
Yeah. Oh
creation
yeah.
of, yeah, anything in
Yeah.
particular you remember?
Well, the record plant was a brand new studio, and Gary Kelgren and Chris Stone had come to LA, and they had the record plant in New York, which was already really hugely successful. So they opened a studio here in LA, and Artie's production company, he you know he became his production company was the building right next door. So I mean, he shared a wall with the record plant. So out
Yeah,
the door in, out one door and in the other.
right.
And so yes, Carole King was doing Tapestry, and so uh, Sly Stone was doing an album. The reason you mentioned that I got together with Captain Beefheart was because one evening I'm in B studio and Captain Beefheart is working in A studio, and he comes in, and you listen to his stuff, he listened to yours, and later on that evening he dropped by again, and I met him in the hallway, and we talked a little bit and chatted with a couple of people and him. And then a couple of minutes later, he says to me, would you like to come and overdub on a track of mine? Because I'm not very happy with the drums. See what I'm saying?
I
So,
do, yeah.
I walked from B studio to A studio, and we set up, and started at midnight. And by about 4 a.m., we had the track. Uh, and the reason for the long hours, Adam, was that the track was really difficult. At one moment, at
Captain
one,
Beefheart, you're kidding.
yeah, right, yes, yes, it's and here you have basically a New Zealander trying to get into the head of Captain Beefheart, which was kind of good in its own innocent way. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
saying?
sure he liked that.
Yeah, exactly. So what we did was at one point we were listening to a playback, and I stood next to the multi-track machine, and I counted the amount of splices in the tape on this track, and there was 17 splices, and apparently he was working that way at the time. He would end up, bits and pieces, and so you got odd time measurements and songs, and you end up kind of having to conduct it and really, study it because it went in such weird places. It wasn't just an intro, a verse, a chorus, into a second chorus. It was all over the place. But it was
Yeah.
art. It was very artistic. And it was a challenge, but we got it. It was a song called Glider, and it was on the Spotlight Kid album. And, uh, I'm able to talk to you about it because it was a wonderful experience. It was a whole different experience. And a year or so later, maybe not even that long, here I am with Billy, and we're opening for Jay Giles at the Academy of Music
Mhm.
in Manhattan, and Beefheart is the special guest, and
Nice.
you just don't know where it's going to go.
Well, so now did you ditch your band to play with Billy, or was it like your band wasn't
Yeah,
happening? Okay, tell me. Can you tell me that story without getting in trouble?
yeah, 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 yeah. Luckily, it's 50 years later.
Right.
Well, yeah, yeah. 50 years next year. Yes. Yeah, our two of the band members, they were both lead singers, and one was the guitar player, lead singer. He was also the songwriter. His name's Ray Burton, and so he was our songwriter and the executives. You know, there was a couple of combination things of writers, but Ray Burton was the main songwriter, lead guitar player, lead singer, and so one day I got a knock on the door of the apartment, and it was him and the lead singer, Gino Cunico, and they said, "Rhys, we want to talk to you." I said, "Okay, come on in." And they said, we've made a separate deal to be a duo. We've been working on songs, and we found that, you know, they both have wonderful, strong lead vocal power, and they came together in their own apartments and started a duo. And they said, "We want you to play drums on. We've made a deal. We want you to play drums on." I said, "Yeah, I would love that." So that left the other three members of the band, which personality-wise is a situation where this does happen. You if there's a crack in the whole ensemble, sometimes it can be end up kind of like politics,
Yeah.
whereby there's two parties. And so in our case, the party of Burton and Cunico and myself was one party, and the other three were the husband and wife, and the husband was the band leader, and the bass player was the brother of the band leader, and so they were the three kings.
Ah,
Yeah, so it was Brian, Carol, and Gary King. So see what I'm saying? So you had two camps
right.
within the one band, and so I've got to say that I was elated because I was really enjoying, in the downtime, um, people asking me to play drums on their stuff, and so it was a wonderful learning experience for me to now be an individual, um, and I had admired all the session players up through that past 3 years with our band. They were my influences, the Hal Blaines, the Larry Nechtels, uh, etc., Joe Osborne. So here we are, within a very short period of time, we were intermingling with them in the studio, industry in Los Angeles here. And so I was really enjoying that because I was learning and also enjoying the possibility that, people were giving me opportunities to play on original stuff. And I loved it. So,
So you've
you know,
become a session drummer essentially.
well, yeah, yeah. I mean, a couple of people here and there said, he became a session drummer. And interestingly enough, Adam, I never felt that I was, because the session players to me were so far beyond what I was able to, for my talents. They were my icons. They were my influences, and so I very much revered them. And I was, a drummer in bands, and I loved playing drums, and so I didn't kind of think about me being a session player at all. I still don't, never have, but I understand, that people would kind of give you that label if they, they saw that I'd played on Billy's material, etc. Yeah, I understand that, and it turned out that some of the icons that I loved, they were also from bands, themselves. They were from bands,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So you still don't feel like you're a session drummer? You have session drummer imposter syndrome?
yeah. Well, no, I've accepted that I'm very complimented to be, kind of have that little bit of a label. I am definitely complimented, um, be, uh, but from this point of view, that now it's it's not that way. The technology,
Hmm.
it's not kind of that way now. It's like session drummer. You can be in your garage and doing it all yourself and be therefore you know a session player if you want to label yourself that. You know what I'm
And
saying?
I do. And yet, the
Yeah.
reason I wanted to spend so much time on your career up to this point, when everybody's screaming, get to Billy, is
Yeah.
because there are people in our audience who want to be drummers. And
Yeah.
sure, you can sit in your apartment and you can play, but really, if you want to be playing with people today, even who are doing great
Yeah.
things, you can't sit there. You have to do what you did. You've got to get
Yeah.
where they are,
Yeah.
mingle with them, and just be around. You were just
Yeah.
hanging around, and Captain Beefheart happened to be there. Billy
Yeah.
Joel happened to be there, and it's because you weren't doing graphic design in New Zealand. You know,
Yeah. Right.
you followed the path, and that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to talk so long about this, because there are
Yeah.
people that today you have the illusion that you can do it all, and you have to be out there with people.
Yes, you do. And what I do appreciate today is, first of all, that you allowing me to talk to you about, my path. And the thing is that I very much admire the opportunity and feel good about the opportunity to, convey a little of my experience to the younger generations. And backing up to the silhouettes for a moment, I did actually, you know, had some students because I of the silhouettes, we were the band in the area, and we were also going somewhere with records and what have you. So that also led to uh, young wannabe drummers, coming to me and saying, will you give me some lessons? And so I'm very proud to say that I mean I had five, potentials, but I'm proud to say that one of them um, I got right away. He was easy to teach. The others, had a little bit of a hard time, but you could tell that he had it. He knew what he wanted, and he asked the right questions. And one of the questions he asked, I've never forgotten. He said, after some lessons, he said, "I've got an audition with a band," and it was at the high-profile club in Auckland City, and so it was at a wonderful level, at the top level of the Auckland music scene. Okay,
Yeah.
and so he said, he asked me that question, which I was very impressed with. He said, "Would you come and help me and critique me and guide me because I'm going to do an audition?" And he did end up in a band that had got a recording contract and had success in New Zealand. And so I Rob Node is his name for posterity. And yeah, because he. So I'm very grateful to you for the opportunity to be able to help wherever I can with students who have questions.
Well, it's immensely valuable
Yeah,
to me personally to hear this history, but also to be able to share, your significant experience with folks. And there's a lot of people that wouldn't take the time, so I appreciate it. Uh,
sure. And
so,
and and of course the just to add, part of it is luck. Yes, it is. But but as my wife said, you make your own luck, and by doing that, um, you go with your enthusiasm and your love and drive with your heart and soul because you want it.
so you are in half of what used to be Innocence. And did that fly
Yep.
at all, or did the splitting of the Titanic sink the ship?
It was a Titanic, but unfortunately not for all of us.
Oh, okay.
With the manager, um, after after the iceberg, after the Titanic ran into the iceberg, uh, wanted me to get together with the remaining band members, Brian, Carol, and Gary, and we went to the manager's house and had a dinner slash meeting, and it was all about asking me what I was going to do now that I'd done the Burton and Cunico album, and I so I said to the manager, our album has taken so long, and I personally have gone through, ups and downs by having great anticipation of us getting our first single release, setting up, a tour to promote the album. And it has been canceled, postponed. And meanwhile, 9 months has gone by. And I have enjoyed doing other people's and demos. And I just can't, I don't feel I can come back to our project. It is, I had such anticipation of getting into the competition of it all with, with all the wonderful hit records and success of the time, and wanting us to be part of that, which is what we were all striving for, that I don't see it, because Gino and Ray are a strong part of the ensemble, and um, so we would need obviously to replace them, and with that and the songs, um, I feel I've kind of moved on from the band. So I said I'm kind of happy to be doing session work, and the manager rightfully pointed out, well, session work is difficult. It's hard to do and all that. And I said, yeah, I know, but it was. I also got told by the Australian Musicians Union when I wrote them a letter saying I wanted to come to Australia and join the music scene. They wrote me back, and at least they wrote me back,
Yeah, yeah.
and they said, uh, thank you. We know you're a splendid player by your bio and all that, but we recommend you stay where you are. We have an overabundance of musicians and not enough work.
Yeah.
And Adam, I was disheartened that not enough
That's called
to.
filtering, where they filter people.
Yeah, it is exactly. But so I was, uh, there was not enough discouragement to stop me from, and
Right.
and just go, okay, I won't. No, I'm coming. I'm
Yeah, they
coming
were
to
filtering
Australia.
for you. They were filtering for people like you who weren't discouraged
Well,
by
I'm sorry.
no.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, I think yeah, it's just one thing.
But well, then again,
No? Okay. Tell
well,
me.
no, filtering is good, because that's a good word. Um, Australia, uh, politically at that time, and had a filtered policy, but it was a but it was towards black folk.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah,
so this goes deeper. Okay.
yeah, and it goes deeper. And so the union, um, their filtering would have been the same for musicians because they also had a long time policy, when it came to the unions in Australia. The musicians union, their policy filter was that for every act that got brought into Australia from the rest of the world, um, they protected the Australian musicians and players and singers by saying you have to have a one-on-one on that stage of the United States headliner. There has to be an Australian opening band, singer, act as well. Otherwise, you have to agree to do that,
Yeah.
and it's still that way. So that's that's their kind of filtering system. So a New Zealand musician, that filtering would have been a little negative for me because
Yeah.
they said we've got too many players and not enough work. So
You were supposed to read
so
between the lines. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Being polite about it, well, being political.
Right. Yeah.
And
But
go ahead.
no, please.
Yeah, so I went anyway, and and had uh, I had some names to look up and so forth, but basically it was um, search for myself, and
Hmm.
I was very fortunate to have a backup system if I, couldn't get any work. My family, you know, promised me that I could come home. My graphics job, when I, told the owner that I was wanted to do this, he said, if it doesn't work, we will, we'll have you back
And
in
the
your
job is still waiting for you, Rhys,
yeah,
if it doesn't work
yeah,
out.
and yeah, and the band, I probably could have come back to the band too. So I did have
Yeah,
those, those little files with me for confidence,
that's good.
and and I had some decent money to survive on.
Yeah.
So so I got I the audition with the executives was 6 weeks into my being in Sydney.
And
So
you just
so
found
I
it, some luck there,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's what you got to do.
right?
As you said, right time, right place, right moment, etc. But you have to be willing to, put yourself out on the line there, and keep at it. Keep at it. Don't give up.
So was there any of that in your ability to get to play with Billy Joel, or was that simply just good luck? You'd already done the work and it fell on you.
It I was in the right place at the right time. It fell on me. Yes,
Yeah.
because um, you know, Adi and I will always be gratified that he did that and gave me the opportunity to come together with Billy, and a lot of the other wonderful singer songwriters that I got to do work with. Um, he Adi financially put me on a staff member drummer with Family Records. Okay,
Yeah. So
so he
you could eat.
so I guess in that, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Have a roof over your head and food in which to carry on, and do projects that everybody's rolling the dice. And that's what I'm saying about the the execs. It was just a situation now where I was now enjoying the independence, and Artie provided that.
Yeah, and Billy Joel was in the same boat as you. For the folks that are not
Yeah,
familiar with his
yeah,
history, his Cold Spring Harbor and Piano Man, these are huge albums now, but at the time,
yeah.
there were no guarantees for Billy Joel. He was just
Mm,
another singer-songwriter.
No, he had some success with the Hassles.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that's true.
Yeah,
He
and,
had a history with
yeah,
two albums with the Hassles and one with
yeah.
his drummer John Small. Uh,
Right. Well,
right,
Attila.
Attila. Yeah, crazy
Yeah,
album. Right.
yeah, and see, that was the same scenario as I went through, whereby Billy and John were in the Hassles, and so therefore they were on United Artists label,
Hmm.
and so at a certain point here, where the time seemed to be right, they went for it and formed a power duo, just the two of them,
Right.
and they went to United Artists and got a deal.
Yep. And
Yeah,
recorded a very odd album called Attila.
yeah,
I won't say
yeah,
bad. I kind of like it, but it is very odd. It's just organ and drums.
yeah, and it could have been, a major success. However, um, um, Lee Michaels was already successful with the power duo, keyboards and drums.
Ah,
Yeah, because the Lee Michaels band was just Lee Michaels on keyboards, and then a real fine drummer, Frosty.
I did
So
not know there was another Attila out
yeah,
there.
yeah, yes, exactly. And they were on the charts. So
Yeah.
it was like everything else. It was Billy and John's shot of doing something. It was hugely enthusiastic. The power in the talents there was, it was
Yes.
palpable, and so but it was, for Billy, it was a venture into a whole singer-songwriting thing that he had in him. And, the idea was to try and harness this rawness.
Right.
And,
But
and so
hindsight
how,
is 2020. I mean, the
yeah,
songs that he did on the Hassles album, they don't give that they're very interesting, but they
right,
don't give much clue of what he would become.
right, right.
So he comes out to LA and like I
Yes,
said, even hearing Cold Spring Harbor, even hearing Piano Man, he might not have
yeah,
gone any farther than that.
exactly. There's that possibility.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, um, for me, it was, a whole new exciting situation. I had been long into Elton John and his material, and
Hmm.
so his a comparison. But Billy, to me, was only a limited comparison. Piano and vocal,
Of course.
and original songs. But Billy, uh, compared to Elton, was also the writer. He had the
Right.
whole package. Bernie Taupin was Elton's lyricist, and so he had a really large package by comparison, considering that Billy was what is he is everything,
Yeah.
and throughout his career, he's also had the sensibilities to know from his experiences of his first record deals in the business, plus what he inherited in his DNA from his mom and dad. Um,
Right.
you know, he knows already. He's got so many clues as to how the nuts and bolts work in the business, and that huge confidence of being able to, draw from being a classical trained pianist to, to knowing that he has a huge, strong voice that's hugely versatile and malleable, um, and everything is at New York pace, New York speed.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the real energy,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
So
and and,
it's
and so by comparison to Elton, those are the things I was comparing, and
sure.
and yeah, and Billy just um, could fly on acoustic piano and even fly faster on the Hammond B3, which was what Attila was.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So that leads me to my question. I mean, it sounds like you were a fan from the get-go. It sounds like you, and maybe
Oh
even
yeah.
more, maybe you
Well,
had a sense of what he could be.
yes, and where did that sense come from for me? Once again, I was lucky. Growing up in a musical situation in the family where my dad at one point bought mom a piano. My mom's mom, she was a piano player. My dad's sister was a piano teacher, and so that's where my groundwork began. Was around our piano in the living room there, Adam. And I would sit on the floor with bongos and so forth and be the percussion accompanist. And we'd have sing alongs.
That's nice.
And yeah, so I already had a wonderful appreciation, respect, and a kinship with accompanying the piano. So the executives,
Ah,
there it was again, the piano, and my favorite instrument became the sound of the Hammond B3, and so in the executives we had that as well. And so my perfect band would be drums, bass, guitar, vocals, and in the keyboards, it would be acoustic piano and B3, that ensemble. So Billy had that as well.
yeah. So he was ringing all your bells essentially.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
he was giving me a great challenge because his musical talent and proficiency vocally and piano wise was a wonderful challenge. It's like, whoa, yeah, this is a pressure situation for me. And he even compounded it even more because Artie went the route of bringing in an arranger, Jimmy Haskell,
Yeah. Yeah.
to arrange all the tracks on Cold Spring Harbor. So now it's charts as well. It's reading.
So I was going
And
to ask you about this. in later records, when he's working with Liberty DeVito, Liberty and other members of the band, they supplied pieces of the arrangement. They helped him craft the songs together. It sounds to me like you were not asked to do that, at least on Cold Spring Harbor, but were given arrangements to play. Is that correct?
Yes, but it was both.
Okay.
What happened was, what came first was us. Billy wrote the song. We got together as the rhythm section to record the rhythm track. And so what happened was Jimmy Haskell made the arrangement from us already doing the song.
Okay,
Because
so he got his ideas from you.
yes, exactly. Because what he
Okay.
was going to be doing was he was going to be putting all the horns, what they call the sweetening of all the songs that the sweetening was applicable to. Jimmy needed, charts for all the horn players, the string players, and
All the
and
things you
all
can
this.
hear if you get the original vinyl and don't, not the CD itself, but the original vinyl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And there
So
are some really
so
nice arrangements.
yeah, exactly. And that's all Billy.
Yeah.
I mean, there was very little when we came in to do a song, Adam. There was little else to do other than come together on it and play a good tight rhythm track arrangement. It was all there. Billy, it was complete. And
Yeah.
so, and one proof of that was after we'd done all the tracks, there was a moment there one afternoon where Artie said, um, "Billy, is can you write a song that will be kind of a conclusion to the album because the album is pretty deep and it has a lot of darkness to it. So can you write a song perhaps that is kind of reassuring and uplifting and give us an opportunity to to be able to move forward in an uplifting way. Okay, so that night Billy wrote a song. The next day I came into the studio and Billy was in the middle of recording it, and this was Got to Begin Again.
Right. The last song on the album. Right.
Yeah, and he'd written that overnight.
Neat. So you were asked for your input on these songs.
Yes, yeah, you because to begin with, your input is you're the chosen drummer, bass player, guitar player, second keyboard, and so yes, in any of the good people, um, they're trusting you, to give them the confidence that what you're contributing fits, works, and is well done and well played, etc. And so Billy is leaving that that openness for you, to do your thing, and so he knows that um, he he trusted Artie too in the same way, right?
Hmm.
To guide his songs, and so um, that's my song, and hope you like it, and here we go.
Is that you've played with a lot of folks? Is that a hallmark
Yeah,
of some of the successful people that they're open to the
yeah,
contributions, or are there some people who are very dictatorial and say, no, this is how you're going to do it, and I don't want your input, and they still succeed? Is there a
yep.
is it po-
It's all that.
it's all possible?
Yeah,
And in this
yep,
case, Billy just happened to be the
yeah.
listening. He didn't just write it off and say do whatever you want, but he was involved with you and you collaborated with him.
Yes, exactly.
It's
We came
nice.
together with him, and um, the the two camps at the time for producing a hit record, Adam, and it's always been this way, really, is that the organic camp and then the mass produced camp. You know,
Right.
so so there's a for the record label, that for them a priority is we want to hear a hit record. So both camps bring records in that form where the organic camp is the Billy camp, and that is that we uh, we we do this even as though he's an individual. We do this with a band feel. The opposite camp is the record company provides a producer and takes your song, and they use session musicians to come up with the track. And so at that point, it's all kind of mechanical. And I mean, it is good because the players and the level of players is really good. So, but however, there's a little stiffness because it is all kind of written out and produced that way rather than the freedom of being able to spontaneously come up with something with a set of players on a good song. You got that?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
And so, so both works, but Billy wanted to keep it in the organic, form, and he didn't really care for the produced form.